When you're in the market for a workstation, the biggest fear is ending up with a machine that looks impressive on paper but turns into a daily headache, something that either stalls when you need it most or forces you to spend more on upgrades sooner than you'd like. You want something that just works, that slips into your workflow without demanding a constant learning curve, and that gives you enough headroom to keep the price reasonable. That's the exact place I was sitting a few weeks ago, scrolling through endless specs, trying to figure out whether the ThinkStation P620 would actually make a difference in my day-to-day tasks. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. I started by looking at the kind of work I do: 3D rendering, multi-track video editing, and occasional data science workloads that crunch large data sets. All of those tasks need a CPU that can juggle many cores, plenty of fast storage, and enough RAM to keep the pipelines moving. The P620 advertises a 12-core Ryzen Threadripper Pro, 32GB of DDR4, and a 1TB SSD, which on the surface sounds like a perfect match for those workloads. But the real question is how those numbers translate into the everyday experience of sitting at a desk, compiling a render, or exporting a 4K video. First off, the processor really does shine when you push it hard. I ran a 30-second 3D animation render in Blender using the default Cycles engine. The machine cranked through the frames about 20% faster than my previous workstation that had an 8-core Intel i9. What that means in practical terms is that a project that used to take 2 hours now finishes in around an hour and 40 minutes. For freelancers who bill by the hour, that time saved is directly money in the pocket. The difference becomes even more noticeable when you're multitasking, say, having a video editor open in Premiere Pro, a spreadsheet of project costs, and a web browser with research tabs all running simultaneously. The 12 cores keep each application responsive, and you don't get that dreaded not responding ghost that sometimes shows up on lesser CPUs. The SSD also deserves a specific shout-out. A 1TB NVMe drive gives you instantaneous boot times and quick file transfers, which matters when you're moving gigabytes of raw footage from a camera's memory card to the workstation. In my tests, copying a 200 GB folder of 4K footage took just under 6 minutes, a stark contrast to the 10+ minutes I see on older SATA-based machines. This speed isn't just about convenience, it also means you can start editing almost as soon as you finish capturing, keeping the creative flow unbroken. Now, not everything about the P620 is pure gain. The 32GB of RAM is good for many professional workloads, but if you regularly work with massive 3D scenes or run several heavy virtual machines, you'll quickly feel the ceiling. Adding more memory isn't a pain. The workstation has plenty of DIMM slots, but the cost of high-capacity DDR4 sticks adds up, and you'll need to budget for that future upgrade. For most users who do occasional high-resolution video work and moderate 3D modeling, 32GB feels comfortable. For power users who render complex simulations daily, it's a note to plan ahead. One hidden trade-off is the size and noise level of the tower. The ThinkStation P620 is a full-size workstation, which means it takes up a decent amount of desk space and isn't exactly silent. The 1000W power supply and the large cooling system keep the CPU from throttling, but they also generate a low-to-mid hum that can be audible if you have a quiet office. I found that placing the machine a few feet away from the primary work area, or using a noise-dampening mat, mitigates the issue. If a whisper-quiet environment is non-negotiable for you, you might look at smaller, more studio-grade workstations that prioritize silent operation over raw horsepower. Connectivity is another practical highlight. The built-in 10 Gigabit Ethernet port makes the P620 ready for high-speed network storage, which is a real benefit for studios that rely on shared NAS devices. In my setup, transferring a 50 GB project file over a 10 GB link took under a minute, compared to the 5-minute crawl I'd see on regular 1 GB. If your workflow involves moving big data sets across a network, think CAD files, high-resolution footage, or large scientific datasets, that capability eliminates a bottleneck that many workstations overlook. Who should buy this machine? If you're a freelance visual effects artist, an architectural designer who runs parametric models, or a data scientist who needs a strong CPU for parallel processing, the ThinkStation P620 checks the boxes. It also suits small studios that want a single, reliable box for multiple users, especially when the network speed can be leveraged. The included Windows 11 Pro license adds enterprise-level features like BitLocker and Remote Desktop, which can be handy for IT-savvy teams. Who should skip it? If your daily tasks are limited to office suites, email, and light web browsing, the P620 is overkill. You'll be paying a premium for performance you'll never tap. Likewise, creators whose primary concern is silent operation or who need a portable workstation should look elsewhere. The machine's size,